Has OU football play-by-play man Bob Berry Sr. earned the right to go out on his own terms? Should phenom Bryce Harper be able to enter the world of professional baseball on his own terms? And under what terms should the Oklahoma City Thunder consider trading down in this month's NBA draft? From the Opupco Studios in Oklahoma City, I'm Mike Sherman, and this is the Press Row. With me are Oklahoman columnist Jenny Carlson, John Rohde, and Barry Trammell. But let's start with another Berry. Bob Berry Sr. is 78 years old. He underwent his second hip surgery yesterday, and then this fall he'll begin his 32nd season as the voice of the Sooners with no plans for retirement, folks. Has he earned the right to choose when he'll step down, Barry?
No. I mean, I don't think anybody earns that right. Outside of maybe the monarchy, I guess. I'd have to study it. But in terms of just regular jobs, sports or otherwise, no. I mean, at some point, it doesn't matter what you've done. If you can't do the job anymore, somebody else needs to take over.
Have we got to that point yet?
I arrived here in 1987. That same year, they said Bob Berry's job is in trouble. What are we, 2009? They must like him for some reason. He's a great guy. He's 78. I'm not getting to 78. I don't know if you guys are. I'm definitely not. So you want to honor him, and I think they've paid homage to him just by letting him continue what he loves to do, because it is love first with him.
Well, and I think he can still do some of the historical things that he's done too with the radio broadcast. He does some of the voiceovers for different things. I mean, he can keep doing that for as long as he's got a voice, and I don't think that's going away. But I think that they would probably be well served, not necessarily because of this, but just when you've got somebody who's 78 years old, to start to work on that plan of succession, bring somebody in, have another third voice in the booth or whatever, have some sort of plan in place so that you can move forward and sort of have a transition of power, because that's what this is. He's been there that long.
Once upon a time, this was as high a profile position for OU football outside of the head football coach. Everybody, 74, 75, when there was no television, it was the voice of the Sooners who was the Sooners to many people. Now, Senior now says, I'm not the greatest announcer in the world, and he acknowledged that he has his critics. Is it fair to say now that he struggles through his broadcasts?
Well, I think it's not only fair, I think it's accurate. So, yeah, he struggles, and, he used to be very good. Now he's not so good. But what you said is correct. The job is not as important as it used to be. It used to be a lot more important to be a great radio man. Not that many people listen anymore. Some people still sit at home and watch on television with the radio on, but not many. Some people still sit in the stadium and listen to the radio broadcast. But the job has lost its luster.
Who would OU turn to for a replacement? I mean, where do you find the next Bob Berry Sr.?
Well, the names I've heard through the years were Chuck Cooper's team, but he's pretty well settled in Dallas. I've also heard of Bob Carpenter, who's, I believe, living in Tulsa, does the national games, and he does OU women's basketball. So I'm thinking Bob Carpenter would be on that list.
I think any of those guys would be great. Chuck, I've gotten to know a little bit, same way with Bob. I know there's the play-by-play voice at Missouri is another potential candidate. I mean, I think they're going to get a good candidate when the time comes, because even though radio announcing isn't as important as it used to be, I still think for OU, for a predominant college football program like they have, they're going to go get somebody that's good. They're going to have that ability to go out and find somebody that can do a really great job. And so I don't know who that person is, but I suspect it'll be somebody with some fairly significant play-by-play experience.
Chuck Kelly's the OU baseball announcer. He's wanted the job for a long time, does a very good job on the baseball side. He'll also be in the mix.
Okay, so what will his legacy be? I mean, in Bob Berry Sr., you get this guy who's done both schools, OU and OSU. And in reality, as far as a play-by-play announcer for a state team like this, isn't it somewhat more important to be familiar to people, for people to be comfortable with you, than it is to get the down and distance right all the time? Isn't that more important in the end?
Well, I would say no. I think it's important to tell people what's going on. But I do think Bob Berry is a little bit of an American original. I can't imagine there are too many sports broadcasters in the history of the medium that have covered for as long as he did, have called the games of two arch rivals. 19 years at OSU, 32 years at OU. I mean, this is remarkable enough. He's called every game of the Bob Stoops regime. He called the end of the Bud Wilkinson era and somehow missed the Barry Switzer. I mean, it's a remarkable story. But the Heismans he's called what now? Four different Heismans winners. Missed out on Billy Sims, but everybody from Steve Owens to Barry Sanders to Jason White to Sam Bradford. So it's a remarkable duration of his career.
I think also people will remember him for just the person he was. I mean, obviously he has slipped, as he's said, and I think as everybody can hear with his calls, but he's just one of the nicest guys. I mean, he really, could probably say, hey, I've done all this stuff and all the things that you've just talked about, Barry, and be really hung up on that, but he's not that way. He's just such a nice man, and I think he's been, in a lot of ways, a great ambassador for these schools that he's had associations with. He's been the voice that people have listened to, but he's also, sort of by extension, been a friend, I think, to a lot of fans out there.
And a lot of these guys, John, they don't go quietly.
No.
Ernie Harwell, how many times did he retire as Detroit Tigers announcer? Yeah. Chuck Thompson in Baltimore, none of you guys might know him, but I sure do. Ain't the beer cold? Go to war, Miss Agnes. He was saying that when I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on in the game, but I still love Chuck Thompson. There's just not that many more guys like him.
Well, I mean, he's a traditional sportscaster and play-by-play guy. Barry, it happens with, I forget his name, the guy who's been doing Georgia football forever is now just doing home games because of health. And Alabama, I'm sure, had a long time, and Auburn had a long time, and OU has a long timer in Bob Barry. I mean, he is, it's great traditional football. And like Barry said, if you want to hear Bob Barry, you tune in to Bob Barry. As far as I know, every OU game was on TV the last 2 or 3 years, and they'll be on TV every game this year. If you want to hear Bob Barry, you tune in for him. It's that simple.
Thanks, guys. That's all for this segment of the Press Row, but there's more in store. John Rohde reports back from his day with baseball phenom Bryce Harper, and we also offer Thunder GM Sam Presti some free advice on draft prospects.
Let's see it.